What is good, everyone? Welcome to the PWD channel where we discuss professional wrestling. In today's episode, we are covering the February 10th, 2023 episode of WWE SmackDown. To start the show off, we're going to talk about the most important segments of the night, which of course was the Bloodline story. That's been the main focus of WWE SmackDown lately. And again, it was the main focus of tonight's episode of SmackDown. Tonight was a decent episode of SmackDown, but let's get straight into it. So the show kicked off. I'm going to be going and covering every single Bloodline segment, no matter who it involved, as long as they were in Bloodline. I'm going to talk about it. So the show immediately kicked off first off, starting with the Paul Heyman promo. He comes out, he kicks the show off immediately. He actually was the first thing on the show. And he does say that, of course, he's going to deliver spoilers. You know, it's a pretty normal Paul Heyman promo, the normal stuff that you get. He says he's going to deliver spoilers. He also says that the Island of Relevancy is under a two-pronged attack from both SmackDown and Raw, obviously referencing Cody Rhodes on Raw and Sami Zayn on SmackDown. It's funny, he called Cody Rhodes a dumbass because Cody Rhodes obviously complained on Monday Night Raw saying that he didn't want this match to be personal, basically, but somebody had to make it personal. And Paul Heyman said that he's a dumbass because, of course, it was always going to be personal. For us, for the Bloodline, for the Island of Relevancy, the titles mean everything to us. There is no Bloodline. There is no Island of Relevancy. There is nothing without these titles. He even says that there is no Roman Reigns without these belts. Paul Heyman puts so much importance on these belts, and he really says and really expresses how much they mean to not only Roman Reigns, but the entire Bloodline. He basically says that if we don't have these world championships, we are nothing. The Bloodline will break up and we are nobody and nothing, and Roman Reigns does not even exist on the show anymore. That's basically what he said. He put so much importance on it. He continues to cut this promo, and then out of nowhere from the back, similar to last week whenever he was on SmackDown, Sami Zayn has the hood on, he takes it off, and Paul Heyman's in the ring, so Sami Zayn, of course, doesn't put his hands on him, but he does get into his face. He cuts a fiery promo on Paul Heyman and kind of talking about how, one, he knows that the Bloodline is weak right now. They are at their weakest point. He said, after like a minute into the promo, he said, if this was 1 month ago, the Bloodline members would have came out and whooped me already. Either both of the twins would have come out and whooped my ass. Solo Sikoa would have come out and whooped my ass. Something would have happened. But look how weak they are now. Where's Solo Sikoa? Where is Jimmy and Jey Uso? Where is everybody? I'm out here in your face, and nobody's protecting you. The Bloodline is weak, Paul Heyman. He says that to Bloodline, or he says that to Paul Heyman, and he says, we both know this. Paul Heyman, or Roman Reigns' days as champion are numbered, and you know that. And yeah, he says that the Bloodline will eventually walk out on Roman pretty much, and Paul Heyman should realize that that's going to happen because that's all he has is the Bloodline. And yeah, he pretty much exposes Paul Heyman and exposes the Bloodline and says that he's going to take them down at Elimination Chamber. And then later on in the night, we go on to a segment backstage where Jimmy's trying to call Jey just like he was last week. Phone was going straight to voicemail. Jey wasn't picking up the phone at all. Jey could not get ahead. Jimmy could not get a hold of Jey, and he was stressing a lot. Later on in the night as well, this happened. The same exact thing happened again, but he was in the room with Paul Heyman this time. He was still trying to get a call out to Jey. Jey wasn't answering. Paul Heyman comes, he sits down next to him, and Jimmy starts ranting about how he can't find Jey and how he's worried about the tag match tonight because, of course, they were fighting for the tag team championships against Braun Strowman and Ricochet. He's stressing out a little bit, ranting to Paul Heyman, but Paul Heyman basically ignores it. He starts playing with his something in his pocket. He starts messing around with it. He's not listening to Jimmy's story at all, surprisingly. And Jimmy kind of confronts him. He's like, "What should I do?" And Paul Heyman's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like, I wasn't listening. Blah blah blah." He basically says, "Like, I wasn't listening to you. Where were you tonight?" And he asks Jimmy, "Where were you tonight? Why weren't you out there to help me whenever Sami Zayn was trying to whenever Sami Zayn was all in my face cutting a promo on me?" And Jimmy, he kind of brushes this aside. He does say, like, "Man, like, you know where I was trying to find Jey." But then he kind of changes the subject and he's like, "I don't know what I'm gonna do tonight." And he's like, hey, come on, OG. You know, he references Paul Heyman. He calls him OG. He's like, "Come on, OG. How about you get in the match with me tonight?" Referencing that him and Paul Heyman fight Ricochet and Braun Strowman, which would have been funny to see, but Paul Heyman, of course, turned it down. He says, "I'm not that guy," basically. And then we get on to the match. When the match first starts, of course, Jimmy enters alone, and as soon as they were about to announce the team as just Jimmy defending the titles by himself, Jey Uso ends up coming out from the crowd, kind of similar to where the Shield area comes out. You know, Mox and them, they always enter from the crowd. They came out from the crowd. Crowd is going crazy. Everyone's hyping them up. Everyone's chanting Uso and stuff like that. And yeah, the match goes on. Something I noticed in this match, and I'm not sure if this is going to play into anything at all. I highly doubt it, but it is something worth noting. Jimmy Uso, a lot of the period of time in this match, and pretty much throughout the entire match, he was getting his ass kicked. He was getting his ass handed to him by Braun Strowman and Ricochet during this tag team championship match. Again, I'm not sure if they're going to play into that or if they're ever going to mention that at all. I kind of doubt it. It might have just been something that I noticed, but throughout this entire match, this match did go a little while. Jimmy was getting his ass kicked. Jey was having to help him out a lot, and Jey pretty much carried this match. He pretty much soloed. Yeah, just something that I noticed. So the match went on for a while. Again, it was a pretty good match. It wasn't like an insanely great match. It was just a fine match, a good little 3-star tag team match. Braun and Ricochet hit their new finisher, the one where Ricochet does the swanton from the top of Braun's shoulders. He does that on to Jimmy, but Jey just breaks up the tag last minute to help, and eventually later on, and after that, Braun goes for the train. You know, when he does the little like run into the people to shoulder tackle them, he goes for that onto Jey, who was on the outside of the ring, but he misses completely. Jey dodges it, and Braun misses, and it crashes into the announce table. Braun's out for the entirety of the rest of the match. While that's happening, Jimmy and Ricochet are brawling in the corner of the ring. They were brawling in the corner of the ring, but they were brawling in the Usos' corner. So Jey made a tag without Ricochet knowing. Ricochet's able to get Jimmy onto the floor. Ricochet hits a disgusting shooting star press onto Jimmy Uso. It looked horrible for Jimmy because Ricochet, he hit that shooting star press. Mostly, you're supposed to hit it with the upper torso. He mostly hit it with his knees and his foot and like his legs. He completely shattered Jimmy's ribs. Jimmy looked in so much pain, but thankfully, I don't think that they came away with an injury at all. But it looked disgusting. And so he immediately hits the 450, or not the 450, but the shooting star press onto Jimmy. But as he's recovering, like as Ricochet is recovering, he's still laid out on the floor after hitting the move. From the other corner, because he didn't know that a blind tag happened, Jey hits the Uso splash, and that is the end of the match. They retain the titles. Again, this was a good match. Jey carried throughout this match. Absolutely carried throughout this match, to be honest. Like, it was I don't like I said, I don't think that this is going to be referenced at all, but he did carry his brother Jimmy throughout this entire match. Jimmy was just getting his ass handed to him, but it was a good match. Of course, the people won for the SmackDown titles. The Usos won. You kind of expected that. You expected them to leave with the titles, and they did. And then later on, they're after their championship match, they're walking out with the titles. They're walking out the arena, and Jimmy and Jey are talking backstage. And Jimmy asks, like, "Hey, what's up, Uso? Like, you still in the Bloodline?" Basically, he's like, "You in or you out?" And Jey says he doesn't know yet and walks off. And Paul Heyman was behind, listening to the conversation. And Paul Heyman goes up to Jimmy. He's like, "Was that your brother?" And then they say something else. I don't really know what they said. It was like some code word thing, and they walked away. And yeah, then as Jimmy, later on in the night too, there is so many Bloodline segments. That's why I'm starting the show off with this, because it tied throughout the entire show, and there was even more segments than usual. But later on in the night, Sami was talking to Jey Uso backstage as Jey's leaving the building, and he pretty much talks to Jey, and he's like, "Jey, like, first off, thank you. I have so much gratitude for what you did when you walked down on Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. I am so grateful for that." And they're already outside the arena by this point. They're in the parking lot, and he's talking to Jey, and he's telling me, like, "I'm thankful for that. You don't know how much that meant to me. Like, that meant the world to me, basically. And thank you so much." And yeah, and then Sami straight up told Jey, he was like, "Watch out, because Roman is not going to forgive you for what you did, for walking out on the Bloodline at Royal Rumble and embarrassing Roman Reigns. He's not going to forgive you. So take that into note." And then he also said, like, "I know you want this to happen." And he was referencing him finally taking Roman down for the title. He was like, "I know deep down inside you want this to happen, and you know it's going to happen." And he was telling Jey, like, "I'm going to take Roman down, but I don't want you to go down with him." And he's basically telling Jey, make the right decision. Leave the Bloodline for good. You don't need to be involved with it anymore. I'm going to take Roman down, and you do not need to be a part of that. You don't need to be a part of that sinking ship. That's kind of literally exactly what he said. And Sami thanks him some more, and he opens up with a fist bump to Jey. Jey hesitates for a while. He's like, "Man, get out of here. Get out of here. You don't need to be here right now. You shouldn't be here." And Sami was like, I'm leaving. But he's still holding up the fist bump. Jey hesitates, but he does it willingly, and they fist bump. And yeah, and then that was it for a while. And then after the main event, there was a main event match, the Fatal 4-Way match that I'll get into later. After that match happened, there was one more Bloodline segment to close out the show. The last minute of the show, Jimmy is backstage and Paul Heyman enters the room. Paul says Roman said for the Usos to stay home next week during the Elimination Chamber. I believe that's what he said. And I don't know what they were referencing here, but he said that you need to stay, both of y'all, the twins, need to stay home next week and watch the show from home, because sometimes you see things on TV that you don't see when you're here in person. I don't really understand what he was referencing. Roman was watching the show from home. I'm not sure if Roman was mentioning or referencing the fact that Jimmy probably didn't see Jey and Sami fist bump. Maybe he's referencing that. He's probably referencing that, but I'm not sure why he's telling them to stay home. I'm not sure if he doesn't trust the Usos anymore to back him up during his match. I'm not sure if he's just saying that he's going to absolutely mutilate Sami Zayn in the ring and he wants the Usos to watch from home. I don't really know what he was referencing here, but he did say that. And yeah, that closed out the show. That was the end of the show entirely. And yeah, it was a weird ending. The show overall, like, we'll get into it. Actually, we'll get into it now, but the Bloodline stuff tonight, it was pretty good. It was decent. It wasn't anything insane. It wasn't like the best of the best. There's definitely been much better segments, especially last week, but I'm excited to see where they go next Friday. The next Friday is the go-home show for the show the day before Elimination Chamber, and yeah, we'll see what happens. But with that being said, let's get straight onto the SmackDown review. So the show kicked off again with Paul Heyman's promo. We won't talk about that though. And then it kicked off with the first match of the night, which is Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus Hit Row. One thing I did want to point out that I noticed was that the crowds, and this has probably been like this for a while, but I just noticed it again tonight. The crowds are looking so healthy from WWE. Like, whenever they go to arenas, even the upper rows are filled out. And it just looks so much healthier compared to how it was a few years ago. If you went to a WWE show like in 2017, 2018, you'll remember how dead those crowds were because the product was so bad. But thankfully they look so much healthier. And I just wanted to point that out. It's not really relevant to the match, but this match was just absolute domination from Sheamus and Drew McIntyre. Top Dollar never even got to tag in the entire time. McIntyre and Sheamus won with the Claymore, or the Brogue Kick. And they absolutely destroyed Hit Row. Hit Row got nothing from this match at all. After that, though, there was a promo on the screen. The Viking Raiders had a good little filmed promo, basically saying that they're coming for Drew McIntyre and Sheamus next week, and that's going to be the match next week. I'm excited for that. This promo was actually pretty good. It was a filmed promo, and it looked really nice. I'm into the Viking Raiders right now. I'm into them. I like what they're doing with them. We also had a Karrion Kross promo backstage saying that he was going to make Ray suffer tonight, and that he was going to win that Fatal 4-Way to face Walter for the championship. Then we had Lacey Evans versus a jobber. Her name was Carmen Harris or something like that. The crowd didn't care. Nobody cared. I didn't care. Lacey won with the Cobra Clutch. It was whatever. It was very whatever. It was so filler. Nobody cared about it, to be honest. We went on to another backstage segment where Chelsea was complaining to Adam Pearce about something. I don't know. Sonya Deville was also complaining. They were basically complaining, and then Adam Pearce set up a match, them two versus Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan. So that was the match for tonight. Then we went on after that. It was the Braun Strowman and Ricochet match versus the Usos, which we've already talked about. Ray got a promo where he said he'll win the Fatal 4-Way tonight. He had a really nice mask during the segment. This is so irrelevant, but he had a really nice mask. He didn't wear it to the ring. I don't know why, but it was a nice mask. And after that, we got a Natalya promo. This was interesting. Natalya comes out. She cuts a promo. She calls Shayna Baszler a knockoff version of Ronda Rousey. Natalya promos are never good. This one was no exception. It was not good. Just moderately fine. Baszler comes out. Crowd is chanting knock off Ronda towards Baszler. Baszler goes off on a little stint, and she's like, I was fighting before Ronda, referencing that she was fighting MMA before Ronda. She also says she was wrestling worldwide before Ronda, and then she says she was in WWE winning titles before Ronda, and she goes off on a stint. After that, Ronda comes out. Ronda beats up Natalya. They both jump Natalya, and then Shotzi goes in for the save. They both beat up Shotzi. Those two get their asses handed to them. Baszler and Ronda just kicked their asses. It was fine. It's a fine segment, nothing special, but it was fine at best. Then after that, we got the Sami Zayn and Jey Uso segment backstage, of course. We got a promo from LA Knight. He just says that the future is him. He doesn't want to talk about whatever happened during that Mountain Dew Dark match or whatever it was called. That happened. And then we got the tag match that I referenced earlier, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green. Just fine match. It was a good match. It was a fun match. It went short. Like, I think it went like 6 or 7 minutes or something like that. Definitely a short match, but it was fun. Chelsea accidentally hit Sonya Deville, and then Chelsea just got hit with Raquel and Liv's finishers multiple times. And to finish the match, Raquel picked up Liv, powerbombed her directly onto Chelsea to finish the match. That was the end of the match. It was a fun match. It was definitely a fun match. I think honestly, like, that was, I have no more to say about it really. It was a really good match, really fun match, and then we got on to the main event match of the night, and this is the last segment that I am going to talk about in this show. It was a quick show tonight. There's not really much to talk about in this show, honestly, but the main event of the evening was Madcap Moss versus Rey Mysterio versus Karrion Kross versus Santos Escobar, and this was the #1 contenders match for Walter's title on SmackDown next Friday. Madcap Moss won. It was so random. I didn't expect it. It was just random. You had Escobar and Karrion Kross fighting on the outside, and then Madcap Moss just won. He beat Rey Mysterio in the ring, and it was just random. I didn't expect it at all. I seriously did not expect it at all. But yeah, it was a fine match. It was okay. The matches on tonight's show were okay. There wasn't really a lot of matches. This show was taken up so much by the Bloodline stuff, which is always cool, but this week's wrestling itself was just fine. It was just fine. But that is the end of the review, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. My review for this week's episode of SmackDown, that's a difficult one. I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It wasn't bad at all by any means. It also wasn't good by any means. It was just a middle of the show road, perfectly fine. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch it if you haven't already. It's not really worth the watch if you haven't, so don't check it out if you haven't, but it was moderately fine. You could check out the YouTube clips and you'll be just fine. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this review of the Friday Night SmackDown episode. And yeah, if you want to watch more reviews, I review Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and AEW Dynamite every single week on this show. So subscribe to the channel down below. Leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. I love you all. Peace.